All right. Okay. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Bukku training session today. So today's session is going to be focusing more on the managing how you can actually manage e-invoices, of course, with Bukku accounting. Okay. So let me just get started with this. Okay. As for today's agenda, by the way, I didn't actually introduce myself, but I'm Jay. I'm the trainer for today. And for today's agenda, this session is going to be taking up to like 2 hours. Okay, so we will also be having a Q&A session at the end of this session. We will have a very quick introduction for those that are not familiar with Bukku accounting. Okay, very quick one. And then we'll also be briefly talking about a quick introduction into our Bukku's e-invoice solution. And then I will also be going through like how do you actually set up. Okay, you need to actually do a one-time setup in LHDN's MyTax and also MyInvoice portal. This is something that I will later showcase from the presentation slides. Okay, and finally, of course, we will spend most of our time going through the live demo. I will show you most of the use cases, right? How do you actually submit e-invoices? How do you actually reject? How do you actually avoid transactions and things like that? Of course, as I mentioned just now, towards the end of the session, we will also be having a Q&A, right? So I'll try my best to actually finish the presentation earlier so we can actually have a bit more time on the so-called Q&A. And of course, for that, right, I just want to focus on actually highlighting one thing. The Q&A today is going to be focusing more on the software. Okay, so for anything related to the compliance, I'll try my best, but if I couldn't get an answer, perhaps we can actually take it offline. All right, so a very quick introduction to Bukku accounting. So we are a cloud-based accounting software designed specifically for SMEs in Malaysia. By saying cloud-based, I'm actually referring to no need for you to actually install anything. All right, as long as you have any internet connection, you can basically access your company data anywhere on the planet. And also, our company started in 2019, and this is a 100% Malaysian-based, Malaysian-owned company, meaning to say you can expect all the best support ever for the local rules and regulations. And we are currently the fastest growing accounting software in Malaysia. Okay, so powering more than 40,000 SMEs already. And at the same time, we are being supported by over 250 professional accounting firms in the country. Okay, so that's about it, just a very quick one. And as for our e-invoice solution that was just launched recently, it's the purpose of having this e-invoice solution is basically we actually help you to connect and integrate with LHDN's MyInvoice API. We're not talking about a portal. Okay, so this solution is basically meant to actually replace the need of using that MyInvoice portal, and it integrates right into our existing user interface. Meaning to say you don't have to actually relearn, right? So this is not another piece of software that you have to actually learn. Okay, everything is integrated right inside into our accounting software. Okay, and it's included in all subscription plans with no additional charges. And what we are trying to do here is we will try our best to help you to eliminate the need of even filling up to 55 fields, whatever that you have actually heard about from some of the other e-invoice learning sessions online or offline. Also, we are trying our best to help you streamline the process of managing your customers' tax profile. I think you have heard about it, right? So in the future, you want to actually do a business with your clients, right? You have to ask for some of their information, such as their IC number or even the TIN, which is the tax ID, their tax number. Okay, so that's something that we can actually definitely help you with. Later, I'll show you how it looks like. And also, another important point is that we are helping you to also automate the classification code for every single items that you're selling. Later, I'll actually explain why is it so important. So that's basically it for our E-Invoice solution. Okay, so as I mentioned just now, there's no need for you to even use whatever provided by LHDN. Right? We are talking about this MyInvoice portal that they had actually came out with. Okay, but still, you have to still do it once, all right? Just for one time only. You are supposed to somewhat, if I use the layman term, it's like connect from your MyTax account, your MyInvoice account to Bukku's accounting. All right, so that's a one-time job lah. Basically, you need to log in into the MyTax portal. So the interface looks like this. If you have actually logged in before, this is an existing portal that you can actually log in to manage your everything related to your tax lah. Okay, so if you haven't have an account, you have to actually register, right? But this is not what we will be focusing on lah. So assuming that you already have this MyTax account, you can just log in using your IC number. And following that, you will be brought to this interface. So this interface is exactly like a dashboard for the MyTax portal. And from there, you will actually notice there's this thing, this new button called MyInvoice. So that is exactly what you should actually click on. After clicking on that button, you will be brought to a totally new interface. So this is actually how it looks like. So this interface is for you to actually, of course, if you prefer, you can also submit e-invoice, but trust me, it's actually kind of tedious, and which is not something that we will actually recommend you to use. So the only thing, as I mentioned just now, is to come in to actually grant access, right? You want to give us permission to actually, on your behalf, help you to submit e-invoice from the accounting system that you have with us. Okay, so you have to click on the top right hand side. You will see a round icon or button. Click on that, you will see something like this. You're supposed to actually click on this view taxpayer profile. If you are running a Sdn Bhd, then it will be a totally different tax profile. But let's say you are today a sole prop enterprise, it will likely be your personal. Okay, it will be your personal tax profile, which is usually started with IG or something. I mean, if we are talking about the tax ID. Okay, so this is where you have to pay attention to, right? If this is not the one that you wanted, let's say you want to actually grant access for your Sdn Bhd, and yet you are seeing your personal name here, and what you need to do is to click on this switch tax profile. Okay, you click on this switch tax profile, and from there you select which entity. We are talking about the tax profile, which tax entity that you want to actually select and to actually proceed to grant access to Bukku. Okay, if the profile is already correct, then you can just click on this view tax profile, and after that, then the subsequent, the following screen will look like this. Just scroll to the bottom, you will see something like this. All right, the idea is to add, this term is called intermediary. So it's basically like a middleman. We're helping you to do the submission. So that's the term being used in this portal. So you have to click on this button. All right. After that, you have you will actually be coming to this interface. This interface is for you to key in our company information. In this case, we're talking about Bukku accounting. Okay, anything related to our company info, which is actually, we have these three things that you're supposed to key in. TIN, the tax number. BRN, our company's tax number. This is not your company. Just bear in mind, you are giving us access, not yourself. Okay, and the name, you can just copy and paste basically. We also have an article. Don't worry, after this, you can always check with us. We have a whole article that you can just copy and paste. No need to actually type in everything again. So just fill in TIN, BRN, name, click the search button, and you will see these three lines. All right, it should be the same. You should see exactly the same thing. All right, then click on continue. Okay, the next screen will look like this. Representation from and to. This is essentially like telling the system that which period you want to actually grant access to a third-party system like Bukku, so that we can help you to do submission. Okay, if you are very cautious, of course, you can choose a shorter period of time. Right? Otherwise, so let's say you want to have less hassle, you can always give it a bit longer. Like you see in this case, I can even put until year 2071, right? Which is like easily 50 years. You don't have to worry about it. But I think under normal circumstances, I would recommend you to at least select 1 or 2 years as the minimum. After that, you have to turn on. By default, it's turn off, right? Just have to tap one by one here, switch on all four, as the term suggests here, document submission, right? If accidentally you forgotten to turn on any of these, the integration won't work, right? We are not given access, we are not given permission to help you to do the submission. Of course, this whole thing won't work lah. Okay, so you have to make sure all these four are turned on. After that, click on this button. It's just that the very first step you need to do before we even started talking about how do you issue e-invoice from our system. This is the first thing. This is the very important step you need to do. All right, after that, you will see this interface, right? So this is exactly, you should be seeing exactly something like this. And that actually concludes the entire process, all right? So that's basically it. After this is done, you are coming to this screen, you should be able to, our system should be able to help you to do the submission already, which is what I want to actually talk about. We are now going into the live demo. Okay, so just very quickly, and let me just also put out my notes. Okay, we'll try to do step by step. Don't worry, should be fairly easy to follow. The very first thing, if you're not familiar with our interface, this is how it looks like. But for those that are already familiar, the very first thing that I want to talk about is, right, just now we also talk about this. Everyone's talking about 55 fields that you are supposed to fill up before you can actually submit an e-invoice. Okay, so we'll do parts by parts, and to actually help you to streamline the process. Of course, the very first thing is you need to, LHDN needs to identify who is actually submitting the e-invoice. Although you already have whatever credentials, so it's also an important step in their opinion to also provide again some of your company's information. Okay, so LHDN might not have everything, at least at this point, it's not integrated with other government authorities. Okay, if that's the case, right? So you're supposed to provide additional information, right? And this is part of that 55 fields that we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about the supplier information, right? You being the party issuing the invoice, you are definitely, most of the cases, the supplier, right? You're selling something to someone else, you're selling something to your customer, and you being the supplier, you need to complete your supplier's profile. In this case, we call it company profile. So as you can see here, our interface is quite clean, and you know exactly which one is which one. Like this is a legal name, obviously, and then you have this registration number, classification, MSIC code, contact number, and things like that. Okay, so if you have been a user before, then this is fairly similar. You will find it very similar, right? So the key thing that I want to highlight here is I want you to pay attention to these indicators. Okay, you see the yellow color, the orange color, the green color, right? These are all related to the MyInvoice, right? We will try to call it MyInvoice portal. So everything that you are seeing here is related to the MyInvoice requirements. So you know exactly when you look at these indicators, right? You know exactly these are related. It's going to be related to the e-invoice submission. So whatever that is not, you don't see, that is not a requirement. Okay, so LHDN doesn't really care so much about everything else that is in their opinion not important for the submission. So as you can see, you can see quite a number of indicators. So this is actually our way to make it as simple, is as easy to follow as possible, as any business owner, right? So if you have already fulfilled the requirement, right, you will actually see a blue tick, a green tick. Otherwise, you will see a orange color, right? Meaning to say this is actually something's wrong with that, missing. Okay, and that's something that we can help you. The other thing that I want to also highlight is that we have also one of the only in the market having this thing called a live validation. Okay, we're talking about in real time. We will validate everything you key in. Okay, so you don't have to worry that I accidentally key in, although I have my own registration number, I accidentally key in the wrong number. Okay, you don't have to worry about it because there could be some other software. Without this, it's going to give you a lot of hassles. Right? Imagine you key in wrongly and you try to submit, and then of course the submission won't go through because something is wrong. Okay, so that's something that I want to highlight. Okay, let me just show you. Okay, instead of just keep talking, right? I'll show you. In this case, you see I have TIN number missing, so I'm just going to copy and paste. I have the TIN with me here, so I'm just going to copy, and as you can see, immediately, almost real time, you can see the indicators turn green. Okay, so what do I mean by the live validation just now, right? If I were to invalidate it, you see, I'm trying to make it invalid. Immediately, you can see it actually turns to orange color. It doesn't matter. You have already provided a TIN number, but it has to be a correct one. Okay, that's what I meant. If you mouse over, it shows you, it tells you exactly what's going on. Unable to validate your information with MyInvoice. So if I were to fix it, then immediately it's coming back. Okay, so that's something that I want to highlight, the MyInvoice ready indicators, whatever that you are seeing here, as well as the live validation. Okay, so there are still something missing, I believe. So you see, I can easily just follow and I can easily tell that, okay, seems like LHDN require a billing address for any submission, and which is something that I think I can easily fix. So let me just quickly key in something. This one doesn't matter. Okay, of course, being a billing address, I'm supposed to also select this. Then immediately I can see the indicators. Okay, so Malaysia, I just select any random state. Okay, so as you can see, everything is now green, including the bigger indicator. So if I were to go and save it now, I will be greeted MyInvoice profile. I mean, this is ready. My company profile, my supplier information is now ready. So this is just one part of it. We will try to go through step by step. And one more thing that I actually forgot to mention just now. As you can see here, MSIC code, there is an indicator, meaning to say this is also a requirement. Okay, you are supposed to actually provide your MSIC code. Okay, again, don't ask me why, because perhaps LHDN should have all the information, but this is actually a requirement at this point of time. So you are supposed to also tell LHDN exactly what is your nature of business. Okay, but we understand, right? Not everyone can recall, not everyone can remind what's their MSIC code. So in that case, we also have something quite powerful. But if you cannot recall, of course, if you can recall, you can just type in a number. Otherwise, you can just type like, okay, let's say I'm into software development. Okay, you can just type what are you actually doing, right? What's your business nature? Press enter, and the system can automatically help you to actually detect your MSIC code, the most relevant MSIC code. Okay, so that is what we can actually help you with, right? And after that, you can just click OK and then save everything. Okay, so that is the very first step into getting ready for e-invoice submission. Okay, next. All right. Again, we are still talking about that 55 fields. The next important thing that we need to do is your customer, right? Just now we were worrying about supplier. Now it's your customer's turn. You're selling something to your customer. Of course, you need their information. Okay, so based on the requirements, what are the information required? I'll show you. All right. To manage your customer's profile is fairly easy in our system. Again, we have actually enhanced our system together with our e-invoice launch with the indicators, right? That I think you are now familiar with already. It's the same thing from the company profile. We have the same thing. Also, we have the live validation. Don't forget. So if the customer were to give you something wrong, you can also easily tell, and you're gonna correct them on the spot before they leave your office, before they leave your shop. You can tell them something is wrong. Please give me the correct information. Okay, so all this is already in the system lah. And you also, some of you might have also attended some of the e-invoice webinar or seminar. Some of you even paid for it, right? So, and usually you will have this conversation like, okay, what is the requirement? If I'm selling to government, if I'm selling to a business, if I'm selling to another business, if I'm selling to a foreign entity, like which team should I use? Right? Do I need to capture their passport or anything? So in our system, everything is like kind of streamlined. You don't have to worry so much about it. Right? For example, right, if I were to select, like tell the system, now I'm dealing with a business. It's like B2B lah, okay? And then the requirement will be registration number is needed, TIN is needed. But how about individual? If I were to sell to a consumer, again, you do not have to worry about it because system will tell you exactly what is needed. Right? As soon as you key in the correct information, everything will just turn green based on the bare minimum requirements. Because the government says that for you selling to an individual, you need to provide TIN number or the IC number. Either one of it. You do not need both. Okay, so all this is also captured in the system. Right? If you are selling to general public, of course, the requirement is like nothing lah. You don't have to actually key in anything. But if you're selling to today, foreign company, same thing. You do not need a registration number or TIN. This is all automated. All right, these are all automated by the system. Foreign individual also, it's either one of it. Okay, you have to provide a passport and also a TIN, whichever that you need is either one of it. For exempted person, we are talking about you're selling something to a royal family, government. These are all exempted parties. So for that, you do not need to provide any of the information here. Okay, so that's all captured in the system lah. And also you don't have to worry so much about the general TIN number that you have heard about. Okay, so everything is automated. If you just have to key in the proper, select the correct entity type, then you are good to go. Okay, so we have 3 ways to update the tax profile for any of your customer. Okay, let me just go through one by one. I'll try to show you one by one. The very first obvious way is, of course, you're going to update it separately. You're going to update it manually. And I want you to look at this profile, Jeffrey Go and Partner, which is likely a company lah. Okay, so if I were to click on it, you can see that it's not complete. Right? It's actually showing a orange color. So in this case, it's a company. So the requirement is both registration number and TIN required. And I happen to have their BRN number. So I'm just going to copy paste it, fixing the format. I have another one, TIN. Again, I'm just going to fix. And then, so this is where the live indicator, the live validation kicks in. Okay, so I'm actually fixing it. And now you can see everything is green. I can just save it. And that by doing that, it will turn Jeffrey Go and Partner into green color. Okay, so that is what you can do if you have the information with you. And we do understand that this is actually a rather tedious process, which is why we have the second method for you to update your customers' information. So in this case, provided that you actually have all your customers' information with you and you want to update it and you do not want to update one by one, this is where you can come to. In this case, I want you to look at this the first 3 contacts, Auto Malik, Bhavesh, and also Carol Marketing. So these 3 has their registration number missing, okay, as a requirement, right? If you pay closer attention to it, these 2 are consumer, which is like either one, right? Registration number or TIN required. And second, the Carol Marketing is a company, which is you need the BRN, all right, which is the registration number and also the TIN. So I have the information with me here. So I'm just going to quickly copy paste in, just to show you how the interface looks like. You can actually update multiple records, just like Excel. Okay, you can just paste it. And then for Carol Marketing, I also have their BRN number. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm actually trying to update all three together. Click on save and you can go back. So in no time, you have all three contacts turning green. All right, turning green means what? Means you are ready. I mean, you can start issuing e-invoice for this guy already. Okay, so that is method number 2. And we do also understand, right? You do not have a lot of time to actually spend on doing all this tedious, which is why the third method comes in very important, right? What if you don't actually want to actually go through this hassle, right? Calling your customer one by one, getting their information into Excel spreadsheet, and then later copy paste into the system. Okay, so with that, we are well aware of all these problems or hassles, right? So which is why we actually came up with the third method, which is right something like this. You can select multiple of your customers. Let's say you select 2. You can initiate a request right from our system. Okay, perhaps you are a little bit lost already. What am I talking about? Let me just show you, then you will have a much better idea. Of course, you can request all together or you can actually request one by one. It's the same. All right, in this case, I just want to quickly show you, so I will just go with requesting the data one by one. So I will just quickly double confirm. All right, this is let me check. Yep, Jeffrey Go, right? I want to request information from Jeffrey Go. So I will try to make sure I have their email address lah. Okay, so this is actually the bare minimum right now. As soon as you have their email address, you can go and click on the send button and request information from your customer. It can be one, it can be more than one, up to 100 at any given point of time. So the next step, right now, I want you to think from your customer's perspective. Just now, Jeffrey called, we actually requested information. Your customer, Jeffrey, will actually receive an email like this. Okay, so your company name, and there's an important, we try to make it looks very important, very serious lah. Okay, so your customer can take it more seriously. Okay, so this is going to be your company's letterhead, like company logo, company name, and a message telling them what's going on, like requesting their help to actually fill out their information, because they are the only one who knows what is the TIN, what is the IC and everything. So what they need to do is simply click on this button. Okay, your customer click on this button, and they will be brought to this interface with some of the information filled up. Of course, they cannot change their name, right? It's already decided. I mean, you decide for them what is actually their name, right? So in this case, Jeffrey Go will supposed to come in here to complete the information. And as mentioned earlier, everything is well integrated. Being an individual, right? They are supposed to key in TIN or registration number, right? So let's say system already has the registration number, then this is not going to be in red color lah, and it will be something else, right? So if you get what I mean. So this is where I can, the customer can quickly fill out their information. This is their responsibility already now. And then they can scroll down. So what's left, right? You can try clicking on submit and you can exactly tell what's going on. The billing address is also a requirement, right? Don't forget, everyone's talking about TIN. Also, their address is also a requirement. If you're selling to something, if you're selling to someone, you need to have their name, their TIN or IC, as well as the billing address. These are the bare minimum. And also, forgot to mention, their contact number. So these are all requirements. So some people outside are saying that, hey, as long as you have their TIN, everything should be fine. No, that's not the case. You need to have a contact number. You need to have their billing address. So let me just quickly add in something. Okay, Malaysia. Okay. All right, so now I have completed the form and all the red color is now gone. I can just click on submit. Okay, this is an important step. as a service provider, as a software vendor, we will try to make sure you stay compliant, right? You want to know, we also want you to know that who is the one filling up, okay? There could be some unknown party filling up, which is going to be very dangerous because we are talking about filling up all this information, which is supposed, by right, it should be correct lah. Okay, so here I need to identify myself, right? So let's say I'm Jay. I will also need to do a quick verification. I think something that you guys should be familiar with lah. Sometimes you need to validate using an OTP through a SMS or email, and that's exactly the process. So I will actually provide the email address. So I'm just going to reuse that email address, and then I click on this request OTP, and then I should be getting a email OTP in a short while. Yes, I got it here. So I'm just going to copy and paste here. Click submit. That is the end of the process for your customer. Okay, so you can just close and coming back to the system. All right, what will you be expecting? Let's see. Just now, Jeffrey Go, right? See, if you can recall, it was actually yellow color, orange color just now, and now it's actually turning green. All right, if I were to click on it, you have the customer provider information and also the address. Right, this is exactly I keyed in just now when I was pretending to be the customer. And not just that, right? You want to stay compliant, right? You will be able to track everything going on. Okay, just now a user actually called J, key in this information, right? With their email address captured, with their IP address captured. Okay, just in case something went wrong, if you want to file a police report, whatever. So these are all the supporting information. And not just that, system also highlights exactly what was being updated. The address as well as the IC number in this case. Okay, so that's the method number 3 if you were to get your customer's profile complete. Because if you only have 1 or 2 customers, easy, but we're talking about when the business is booming, you have hundreds of customers. I think this is the best approach for you to actually request for their information. And you all should start doing as soon as possible, right? Don't wait until the last minute, especially when you have a lot of customers, because not all customers will actually come back to you so quickly. So you have to sometimes try multiple times. Okay, so that is number 2, right? After you have the supplier information and you also have the customer information. Moving on, right? There's another important changes to this e-invoice implementation. For every single items that you will be selling in the future, you are supposed to tell LHDN this thing called classification, right? You need to classify every single items that you're selling moving forward, okay? And this thing is called classification code. Let me show you. By saying every single item in the future, whatever invoicing system that you have, you need to provide, like classify, what are you selling, okay? Description is not going to be helpful. I mean, HDM want you to select from a list, okay? So every single items that you are selling, you are supposed to select. And this is something that we think is going to be the most tedious of all. Okay, so how do we help you, right? Being a software vendor, we have, let me just, okay, right. So we have come up with some process. We try to streamline the process and also some automation. The very first thing that you can actually expect from us is you can set the classification code at the product level. Example, if I have this laptop, I can simply select the relevant classification code and click save. And then afterwards, every time you're selling this same item, it will be automatically pre-selected. So meaning to say you actually save a lot of time. If you are, let's say, having a lot of items selling and it's all repeated, then you can actually make use of this. Even better, right? Even better, what if you have freaking no idea like how to do this classification code? We have some automation for you, right? This button, just click on that. System will help you. All right, you click on that, system will help you to find the most relevant text classification code from the description, from the product's name. All right, so that is another automation that we have other than the MSIC code that if you are not familiar with, you can always click on that. And same thing here, okay, because this is something totally new to everyone, including ourselves at first. Okay, so this is something that we can actually help you with. And then once you are done, you can just click on the save button to save the auto-selected classification code. All right, so that is requirement number 3. All right, just to recap, we have actually completed supplier, customer, and also the product, the item. All right, you have all this ready, you are actually good to go. You can start issuing e-invoices from our system already. All right, which is something that I will show you in a short while. All right, but before that, as mentioned, as you should be aware, right, not everyone is actually starting at the same time. A lot of you are still waiting, wait and see how things turns out, right, and wait until next year. Whenever you're ready, you have to activate it. It won't be turning on automatically by default. You have to turn on, and where do you turn it on? Go to company settings. Look for this one, right? You want to start submitting, right? You have to turn on this MyInvoice Submission. Once you turn on, right, you want to turn off, can, but just make sure you haven't actually started submitting any documents. Otherwise, the system will block you from turning off, right? Once you turn on, you started submitting, you can no longer turn off, which is why I cannot turn off already, because I've actually done a lot of testing before this. I have all the documents submitted, so I can't be turning off already. Okay, so this is something that you want to pay attention to. And then another thing is that after turning on, you can actually you can see a MyInvoice portal. Sorry, the MyInvoice module here. Right, this is also something new. Without turning on, you won't be seeing that. Later, I will show you what's actually inside this MyInvoice module and what you can do inside. Okay, so that's the very first step you need to turn on. Okay, then we can start talking about issuing e-invoice already. To issue an e-invoice, of course, you can go to a invoicing interface. Click on this new button. All right. Let's see. Okay, so I have something to follow here, so I'm just going to exactly follow the steps. So this, just to make sure nothing goes wrong. All right. First thing, you select the customer. Right. Ideally, of course, you select the one with this green indicator. But don't worry if the customer is not ready, right? In this case, let's say this is a orange color. You can always, right, adjust. You can always update on the fly. Although this is actually being updated already. Example, let's say this crease, you see, it's incomplete. And you can actually update their information on the fly. You do not have to actually go to the other module, fix it, and then come back. So we actually make it easy for you. You can just do it over here. Okay, so let me just quickly change back to the correct customer. All right, and then this is where you will actually select the item. Like I said just now, it's already pre-selected classification code. Of course, as usual, you can update the pricing, quantity, give discount, and even the text. So all this is like the standard steps. And here, let's say I give some discount, then I can just park it here. Okay, here, and then payment terms, everything. If you scroll to the bottom, you will see something new, right? If you are our existing user, right, you will see something that you are not familiar with. Right? This is the only thing. We try to keep it to the bare minimum. This is the only new thing that you are seeing. Of course, other than the indicators and as well as the classification code. So these are all bare minimum, right? There's you're not getting a lot of surprises, right, with the launch of this e-invoicing. All right. So it's very important that I should be actually explaining this MyInvoice control. You have 3 options here. 1, normal. 2, validate. 3, external. So what does it mean? One by one. All right. Let me try to explain to you. If you want to submit to LHDN for validation immediately, right now, I mean, right now, when you are issuing, you want to immediately submit already, then you select validate. It's just that straightforward. But let's say you do not want that to happen, right? You have two options. One is normal, the other one is external. So if you're asking me what's the difference, right? Both of these, right, won't be submitting the e-invoice to LHDN. But don't forget, there's this thing called consolidated, right? If you're not familiar, you might need to actually go back and study a little bit, right? We also have some webinar teaching you, sharing with you some of the rules and regulations. The consolidation is supposed to be done every month, provided that, let's say, this transaction does not need to be submitted as a separate, as a single e-invoice. Then you select normal. And then at the end of the month, right, following that will be the first 7 days of the following month, you will have to do a consolidation, which is also something that I will talk about later. Whatever that you selected as normal will be included in consolidation. End of the day, it's still being submitted to LHDN, if you get what I mean. And for external, right, if you select external, it's simply, you are simply telling the system that this is already handled by another system, and there's no need for Bukku to do anything. I give you a few examples, right? Let's say you have some transactions, e-commerce. E-commerce, following the guidelines, it will be all handled by Shopee, Lazada, if you're selling on that platforms. And the moment that you want to import something from Shopee and Lazada, you are supposed to select external, because whatever submissions will be, whether it's a consolidation or your customer requesting for e-invoice moving forward, it will all be handled on the Shopee or Lazada platform. And then selecting that, it won't be submitting to LHDN, whether it's immediately and also whether it's consolidation, right? Both of it will be also excluding, okay? It will be excluded. Okay, so that's a quick one into like this MyInvoice control. So I want to show you how submission looks like, how submission works. So I'm just going to select validate, right? So of course you get a prompt, right? Because things is not going to be so straightforward anymore. I mean, at least in the past, you want to update transactions. Let's say you make mistakes, you can easily update. But moving forward, as soon as you submit to LHDN, you can no longer modify your invoice. So that's why we give you a prompt. I keep asking you, hey, are you sure you want to do the submission? You just click yes. Okay, there will be a delay up to 2 to 3 seconds. So this is actually the standard, right? What we are doing is basically we are doing nothing. The system is waiting for behind the scene. These all are happening behind the scene. The system are actually waiting for a signal from LHDN to verify that the invoice has been validated or not. Once validated, you will actually see this green indicator, right? And if you were to scroll down, you will see all this document ID, the validation time, and then the status coming from LHDN stating that this is a valid e-invoice. Okay, so that is basically it. And what else? Okay, another thing that I want to highlight is that the invoice is now locked. Right? Did you see this lock button? Okay, for our existing user, you know you can easily update anything. But now, you see, as I actually click, I keep clicking, I cannot update anything. These are entirely locked. Okay, so these are very fundamental, very important changes that you need to be aware. Okay, and then let me show you, right? You can easily send this invoice to your customers from our system, right? So I forgotten to do that just now. So I'm going to do a quick follow-up email, of course, with the same email address that I have here. And I'm going to quickly email this transaction, which is already an e-invoice to my customer. Okay, and as simple as that, the email is being sent out. So I just wait for a while. Okay, coming back. So you can see the customer will actually receive the e-invoice, the email in real time. So if I were to click on it, this is actually our standard. So we don't talk so much about it anymore. right? Your customer can click on this view invoice and they can see what you are seeing here. All right, your customer will be seeing this thing and a very important changes. All right, you're seeing something like this validation info, reject button, as well as printed on your invoice, there is a QR code. And there's an indicator telling you that this is already a validated e-invoice by LHDN. Okay. So as the customer, of course, they can scan the QR to do a verification, which is going to have the same effect as I were to click on this. It's the same, huh? If you were to click on this, you will come to this interface, right? This is the interface that you can verify this is exactly coming from LHDN. Right? Of course, this is the so-called testing server. Okay, we are all doing the testing on the testing server for this presentation, and then you can see all the information. Okay, if you are to actually do a verification, that is if you were to click on this button. All right, of course, you can do a reject, which is something that I will talk about in a short while. Okay, so that's exactly how you can actually issue an invoice from our system, or e-invoice from our system easily. Now, I want to show you how to issue a normal invoice. Okay, it's very straightforward. I can simply just click on new button. Okay, and what I will do here is I will select a different customer. Okay, I will just do, let's just buy the same thing lah. Okay, a different discount percentage. And then to issue a normal invoice, as simple as selecting normal. It's just that, all right? No changes. You don't need to do any, learn anything. There's no changes to the existing process. Just save as is. Okay, as simple as that. But the tricky thing is that the customer can come back to you, right? On the spot, the customer was telling you that I do not need the e-invoice. And that is the reason why you click on the normal button. But we will never know, right? After a few days, the customer can come back to you like, hey, I actually wanted the e-invoice. Or perhaps exactly after the customer walks out from your shop and then 5 minutes later come back, hey, can you actually give me the e-invoice? Okay, so how do you go about that? You just do, right? Pay attention to this invoice number, 44. All right, so you can just quickly identify this invoice. You go in, you simply switch to validate and then click save. Okay, then these things are supposed to be submitted for validation. Okay, what you are seeing here is there's a delay. Okay, there is a delay coming from LHDN side that the invoice cannot be immediately validated. So let me just do a quick trick and see if I can speed up the validation. Yes. So I was running some command from behind, so this thing can happen faster. So that is the experience that you can actually expect, right? If someone comes back to you, ask for the e-invoice, you can simply switch to validate and then have it validated in like almost no time. Okay, so this is like case number 2. Case number 3, right? Let's say something went wrong. Something went wrong that you want to actually cancel the invoice, right? For example, this one, something that we just submitted and you want to do a cancellation because as I mentioned just now, you cannot modify anymore. The only thing that you can do is once you found an issue with this invoice, you can only cancel. And how do you go about when it comes to cancellation? It's exactly the same process for our existing, if let's say you have been using our system, just click on the white button. This process, this interface is exactly the same. We never change anything. The only changes that you will notice is actually the note. You need to give a reason. Back in the days before e-invoice, we also have this thing, but it's actually optional. You can choose to not provide a reason when you want to void any invoices. I think you all have actually, most of you have actually used that before. But anything linked to LHDN, you need to provide a reason. right? Example, this is created by mistake. You click OK, the system will immediately cancel this document together with the LHDN server, and you can actually see something like this. Okay, my invoice status is now cancelled, and locally in our system, this is also being voided. Okay, so this thing is like totally gone lah. Okay, so you can do this, right? Bear in mind, this can be done within 72 hours. Following LHDN's guideline, you can only do this voiding within 72 hours. After 72 hours, what happened? You can no longer cancel this invoice, right? Even just now, you see a void button, all right, which is not here because this is already voided, right? After 3 days, that void button will be automatically disabled, right? Everything is like seamlessly integrated in our system now. Okay, so that is for the case that when you want to void, you want to cancel a validated e-invoice, you have to do it quickly within 72 hours. The next case that I want to talk about is, right, back to the first invoice that we sent out just now, to that mass electronics lah. Okay, the customer see this, right? They look at it. Okay, I have this. They found something went wrong, right? The quantity is supposed to be 2 instead of 1. So what they can do is they can click on this reject button. Again, this is, we're talking about within 72 hours. After 72 hours, they won't be able to click on the button anymore. Now, right, quantity is supposed to be 2. Okay, so this is where the customer is initiating a reject. They want to request to reject. So bear in mind, this thing won't get cancelled immediately. Let me show you the process. All right, of course, you need to do a verification as just like just now. I'm just going to make use of the same email address, and then I will need to retrieve the OTP. Sorry, yeah. Yep. Okay, so I have this OTP in, so I'm just going to copy and paste. Click on the submit button, click yes. Okay, now the request to reject has been submitted, but very quickly, I want to show you something. This thing, it's a real-time notification sent to you as the seller, as the supplier. So you know exactly what's going on whenever someone actually requests to reject the document. You can click on this. Click on this. It will bring you to the invoice with everything, all the information. Okay, so this is all nicely done. It was requested at what time? Like 3:54 just now. And the reason, quantity is supposed to be 2. So if you acknowledge this, okay, this is correct. It's actually a mistake on your side. You are supposed to actually fix that. Again, you cannot modify. You can only cancel. So in this case, you're just going to accept the rejection by clicking on this button. If you do nothing, then this thing will still be a valid invoice. This thing will actually be gone after the 72 hours. We are all talking about within 72 hours. So if you receive this request and you want to proceed to cancel, you can just click on this cancel button. Clicking on this button will actually trigger this void. Okay, this is the existing voiding process. Again, you have this note, the remarks automatically fill up. Of course, you can make changes, but this is all just for your convenience. Right? If I were to just click OK, then you will have this invoice voided. And from LHDN's perspective, it's actually a cancelled document on the platform. Okay, so it's just that. So this is one of the other case that I want to show, and to actually receive a reject from the customer, and then you accepted it by proceed with a cancellation. So what is going to happen next? After you cancel, we need to complete the story. Quantity is supposed to be 2, so you need to fix that. All right, so how do you fix that? Quickly duplicate, right, to the same customer, and then you are going to fix the error. All right, click on validate, click save. So now you are resubmitting the second document. The first document is already cancelled because that is supposed to be a wrong one. And now you have a successfully validated correct document. And of course, it's up to you whether you want to send to the customer directly or just leave it as is, right? So that is when you want to redo an e-invoice lah, okay? Next, I want to talk about how about you have the invoice and you found something went wrong after 72 hours. Like I said just now, the customer cannot click on reject button anymore. You cannot click the void button anymore. So what can you do? You can only raise a credit note to offset the problem, the one with problem. Okay, so I will just take the same transaction as the example, assuming that, of course, now you can see the void button because I just did it. But assuming that after 3 days, this will be gone. And what I can do is simply do a credit note. I can copy the whole thing by clicking on just one button. It brings me to this interface with everything filled up. All right, so now let's say I want to adjust or I want to cancel the original invoice after 72 hours. I can do a credit note. In this case, I want to cancel it entirely. But what if you want to adjust? You can do so, You can just update this to 1. Then it will actually reverse half of the invoice. Right? Let's say it's actually a mistake. You can bring it down by having the credit note. So it's up to you whether you want to cancel completely or you want to cancel partially. Okay, so in this case, I just going to make sure I am reversing half of the invoice going with the number 45. Okay, so I can just click on this and it will generate a validated credit note. Okay, let's see. Yep, this is a validated credit note and it has the amount is actually 3,000 something. Let's look at the original invoice. So this invoice has been offset partially. Okay, 6,000 something. So moving forward, your customer is going to complete the transaction by paying you half and then getting that one quantity product. Okay, so that is the whole flow from begin to end. All right. Next, I want to show you a case where you issue a normal invoice and then the customer later, they want to request for it after they're already back home. How do they go about? Okay, they can of course come back to your shop, but that is definitely tedious. No one wants to do that. The customer doesn't want to do that. Also, you don't want to entertain. Trust me. Imagine someone keep coming back to you asking for e-invoice. It will be a waste of time. Okay, so how do we go about? Right, let me just issue a normal invoice first so that I can actually show you the process. I will issue a normal invoice. Okay, let's say on the spot, right? I will select a cash sales. It goes. There's a reason why we are selecting this, because this is supposed to be a general public, all right? And with this selected, you actually cannot select. If you select it later, you get an error. So I'm just going to issue a normal invoice in this case, and then let's say someone random walks in, bought a MacBook from you with a huge discount, and they never requested for e-invoice, and therefore you never capture their name and you never click on the validate. So what I meant just now was if you select validate, you get an error, right? This is not a valid customer that you can directly validate. Okay, click save. Okay, so what do we do next? Since I never share the email, I never send out the email, I can go with another way, which is to share with a link as a link. This link I can copy and paste and share with that customer through WhatsApp or anyway. Okay, so I can just click on this link, right? Your customer, right? As soon as you share them the link, they can actually open up, right? And this is just me opening up the invoice, and what I will see is something like this, right? I mean, the customer will be seeing something like this, that they bought this MacBook Air 5399 as cash sales because the merchant never capture the customer's information. And then if you scroll down, it will be stated clearly that this is not a validated e-invoice. This is not a invoice that you can actually file for tax moving forward. So let's say at one point you found out that this needs to be an e-invoice. You need to submit e-invoice for whatever reason. How can you do it? Right? You can do it within the same month, same calendar month following the regulation. And we make it so simple that the customer, without leaving their doorsteps, they can click on this request button to actually request. They can also scan the QR. Right, up to them which one is more convenient for them, and they will become to this same portal where they can just click on this request button to request for e-invoice directly without leaving their house. Okay, so I am just going to quickly fill out some information because everything is like empty here because the merchant knows nothing about us. It's just a cash sales, so I'm just going to put in like customer 102 example, and this is an individual. So I am going to have at least their NRIC or TIN. Right? In this case, I have the NRIC and I will need to fill out as a customer, I fill out my mobile number and the billing address. Again, I will need to do an acknowledgement, like who is the one requesting for e-invoice. Just very quickly, I will copy paste the email and then paste it here, request for OTP. Okay, so let's just wait for the OTP to come in. Okay, now I have this new OTP. Submit. Okay, let's see what will happen. If your customer were to click on this yes button, right, there will be a delay up to 2 or 3 seconds, and then they click OK. Right, this is all the real world scenario. These are all the real scenario. Pending verification, pending validation. So what does it mean? It's taking a bit longer for LHDN to actually do the validation. Okay, best case scenario, the customer can see a validated QR code immediately. They will be able to validate the information, exactly what you actually saw just now. Right, but in this case, LHDN side is their server very busy, so it doesn't come back with a result yet on the spot. But as I run a command from behind and I quickly reload, usually if the document doesn't get validated within 3 seconds, it's basically a bit longer, a few more seconds, then it will be validated, which is why I was able to run a command and get a latest result, and there you go, right? So ideal scenario, the customer click the OK button, the whole thing got refreshed, they can immediately see this validated invoice. Instead of just now, you saw a pending validation, and of course, they can directly click on this validate information to validate with LHDN. Okay, so that is how we can actually make this whole process much simpler. And of course, forgot to mention, you can also see a notification whenever your customer requests for an e-invoice. All right, so coming back, right, I want to show you something. Remember just now, the invoice was issued to a cash sales, remember, right? It's now, forget about this, yeah? It's now being updated. I think I need to do a quick update. It's now being updated to customer 102. Okay, so all these are happen automatically. Okay, so the system automatically do the switching for you without you actually doing any additional works. Next, I want to talk about this thing called self-built e-invoice. Okay, some of you have heard about it, but just to quickly explain, self-built e-invoice is needed for your purchases whenever your supplier cannot provide you with an e-invoice. And for whatever reasons that, let's say you needed an e-invoice to prove your expenses, right? And the other party was not able to do that for a very two important, how should I put it? There's only two important obvious parties that was not able to actually share you the e-invoice. One is foreign entities, right? If you're buying something from Taobao or Amazon, they are not a local entity. Of course, they cannot provide you with with an e-invoice. Number two is you're buying something with from a local individual. They are not conducting business. So for that, they also cannot issue you an e-invoice. But yet you want to prove your expenses. So what do? You can do that easily. As soon as you receive the incoming bill, you can just do it in your system, right? Just make it more realistic. You can actually, you bought something from overseas, all right? So these all are already filled out, so I don't touch it lah. Okay, so I'm just going to change the quantity perhaps. All right, so now it's coming back to the same question, right? My invoice control. If you want to submit on yourself on your side that this thing needs to be submitted, right? This thing, if you were to submit, is actually called self-build. You're helping the supplier to submit. And this thing, that's the reason why it's actually called self-build. Because by right, the responsibility usually falls on the supplier side. But in this case, they cannot provide you. So you have to, as the customer consuming their products or services, you can take over their role and then do the validation. So the whole process, it's going to be exactly the same just by clicking on the validate. Then you will have, again, this is a bit slow today. All right, otherwise, let me just try to update. Yeah, then you have it validated. Okay, so this is a self-built e-invoice, the incoming e-invoice lah. Okay, so this is another important topic that I want to talk about. And of course, after following the rules and regulations, right, you are supposed to, after done with this step, you are supposed to share it back to the supplier. Okay, let's say of course, if you're sending back to the foreign entity, I don't think they care so much about it lah. Let's say you want to send it back to a local individual, then that makes more sense. You can actually share that. Let me just quickly share with you how it looks like. This bill, right? You can share it back to your local individual supplier, and then it comes with a validation information. Okay, so that's also seamlessly integrated. Next, I want to quickly show you, the final thing I want to show you is actually the consolidation, and then we are almost done. We can move on to the Q&A. But before that, I want to quickly show you the e-invoice module, right? We have two options only here. First is Bukku transactions. So whatever that you key in Bukku is what we call Bukku transactions. It can be an invoice, credit note, purchase bill, purchase credit note. Basically, whatever that can be submitted to LHDN, it's actually listed here. And you can easily see the status. These are all done more clearly, right? So again, it's the same as you were to see this, but the information being presented is a bit different. And other than that, you can do a bulk. Let's say I can select 1, 2, 3, and then I can do bulk submission. This is also something that you cannot do under the standard module, right? So let's say you created a lot of transactions that you've forgotten to submit for the entire day. Next day you come back, you can quickly select the missing validated e-invoice, then you quickly click the submit button, and then system can help you to submit one shot lah. Okay, so that's what you can do here. And then when it comes to whatever that you submitted, the MyInvoice documents perspective, right? Everything you can find it here, whether it's being cancelled or void or whatever, you can see everything here. And then you can also go in and inspect what was being submitted. Okay, you want to know, right? Because these are all automatically compiled, the 55 fields that we talked about in the beginning. You want to know exactly what's being submitted. This is where you can come to. All right, you can see this is all automatically done by the system, which I mentioned just now. You don't have to worry about the general theme. It's all automatically used by the system. And then this document is actually related to this transaction, right? We were talking about the Bukku transaction, and then all the information is all under one roof here. So that is a quick one into the e-invoice module. Finally, we want to talk about consolidation. Okay, so for certain businesses like retail, that you do not need to actually issue invoices one by one, e-invoices one by one, you will have to do a consolidation. And that is, again, the same thing, because right now you have the government announced that a 6-month buffer period. All right, so during this buffer period, you can actually choose to submit all together, including the self-bill. Following the latest rules and regulations, you can actually submit self-bill consolidated as well. So in order to submit consolidated, you have to go to Bukku transactions, right? So I want to show you first. We are in the month of December, right? So submission is usually done in the following month, meaning to say, if I were to submit now, it should be for last month, for November, whatever transaction under normal, right? You have this 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4 are normal in the month of November. And these all are not validated, as you can see here. All right, so of course, another requirement is that you have to do the consolidation within the first 7 days. So today's already 12, I am still able to submit. Okay, so system actually doesn't block you. LHDN also doesn't block you from doing that. You can even submit at the end of the month. But the thing is that you might be actually illegible. You might actually kena penalty. So this is something that you should be aware of. Okay, so I can just click on this add consolidated document, and then you don't have to do a lot of things. The period is automatically selected. You have 4 options, whether you want to submit a consolidated invoice, consolidated credit note, you can do that separately. Okay, so in this case, I want to submit the consolidated invoice for these 4 invoices from last month, or November. So I can quickly check everything. If it's all looking good, I can just click on the submit button and just wait for a while. Okay, let's see. Okay, it seems like now LHDN is actually coming back very quickly, even with this consolidated. And how can you know this is actually all validated? Just now, this 4 is now showing valid in a different color because they are consolidated. And you want to verify, you can go to MyInvoice document. You will see a new entry being added here. It's actually exactly showing as the general public. Okay, everything is following the regulations. And then this is now valid. You can click on view button, then it will show you everything, right? So all the information submitted to LHDN. Of course, this document is a consolidated for these 4 transactions. And that's all presented here as well. And this is how the consolidated items looks like. Okay, so it's actually, again, following what was being asked for from LHDN, how we want to consolidate. The sequencing is all done here with the proper classification code. Okay, and this is the total amount. So that's actually the consolidation part. For any reasons, let's say this is actually done wrongly. Let's say I have another transaction that I forgot to actually create before I do a submission. What you can do is you go and cancel it. But ideally, everything should be within the first 7 days, lah, right? Otherwise, there might be penalty. I don't know. You can just cancel it, and then you can just proceed to redo it, right? Fix it, and then come back to do a submission again. Yeah, that's basically for the so-called consolidated lah. Okay, so I am actually done with the presentation already. I think I'll just wait for a while, 1 or 2 minutes. I will wait for the questions to come in. We are now moving back to the Q&A session. Okay. Okay, so I think I have some questions coming in already. It's actually all popping up. So I'll try my best. First question, would there be a recording? Yes, it's already being recorded. Later we'll upload this session to YouTube. So you can actually pay attention to our YouTube channel, or you can get a link from our customer team. Okay, so yep. For sole prop e-invoice registration, can it change the taxpayer name from on IC name to the enterprise name? This is actually a new enforcement that like just happened last month. So a few months before, you were able to actually submit with your IC and your enterprise, but that's no longer the case. But you can actually still do that, but you have to actually add the enterprise. You need to add yourself. Let's say your tax number is IG as the person, right? You need to add yourself as the business owner. As a business owner to the enterprise. Only you can do the submission. If you don't do that, you won't be able to submit. What you can do is you can key in your, like, let me show you the interface. What I'm trying to say is for anyone running a sole prop, you can not like submit with your IG T number with a registration number, right? But until you actually have the business owner setting done lah. So before that is actually done, you have to use your own IC number. Like let's say this is IC, you have to select the NRIC. So that is the current workaround. Right? This is something that you have to be very careful with. Okay, yeah. Will I be able to customize the invoice with validated QR for client to ease the checking of the valid e-invoice in LHDN instead of just the info in the invoice? I think right now is not customizable. For any validated e-invoice, it will be automatically having the QR. I think this is actually one of the easiest way already lah. Feel free to propose if you can think of a better way. Right now, it's all automatically seamlessly added to the invoice, and then they can easily scan to actually verify. Can there be any settings on a user level to submit, edit, or cancel e-invoice? Right now, I think it's all going with the existing permission settings, right? So I can show you briefly, right, who has the right to actually do submission. All right, if you pay attention, when you do a submission, right, if I were to select draft, you won't see the MyInvoice control. Same goes to pending approval. And only when you select ready, you have the option to decide whether you want to submit or not. So what I'm trying to say is that if the user does not have the right to go for ready, let's say they can only save as draft, they can never do a submission. Okay, so right now it's actually, if I would answer you, it's actually tagging along with the existing framework lah. Okay. Can money out do a self-bill? Right now, no. We are still evaluating what's the best way. For now, everything we try to do it properly under sales purchases. You can do a e-invoice, right? with regards to a self-bill e-invoice, if the bill is in December, end of this year, is there a way to block bills for submission in February 2025 onwards, or must submit before 7th of January? I'm not quite sure about this because you actually mentioned 3 months, December, January, and February. I think there are certain rules and regulations that I can't think of right now. For self-bill, there's a due date, like the following month that you're supposed to actually do a submission. If you are talking about that, then yes, so whatever December, then you can do a submission latest by January. So that's but again, I can't be super sure lah. So I think it's best to actually do another verification. All right. Okay. So I got a question: why the invoice don't have a UUID? Yes, the invoice should have a UUID once it's actually submitted, right? If you don't see, means that it's not an e-invoice. Example, let's say this is not an e-invoice. You don't see the green button there. You also don't see a UUID. And for those that already submitted, yes, you will have a UUID. Okay, so yeah, that should be there lah. The classification codes are they created automatically, and do we need to create ourselves? No, it's a fixed list. You cannot create additional classification code. These are all fixed already. You cannot invent a new one, unfortunately. Charity need to submit e-invoice, I believe. Yes. Yeah. After submit with a consolidated invoice, is my original invoice also logged for amendment? Yes, you're right. Everything related, I already cancelled just now, otherwise I can show. But yes, it's just like any other, as long as the invoice is related, linked to a validated document, that is actually locked. You can't make any changes. So, which is why a follow-up answer for that is you have to be careful when you are not sure with a transaction. You better save a draft first, pro forma invoice, until you are very sure, then only you submit. Second question, don't have a debit note. We don't, existing system, we don't have debit note, right? You can make use of the invoice. I think the impact will be bare minimum lah. In the new year, we might be looking at completing it, but for now, you can use the credit, the invoice as the alternative. How about recurring invoice? So recurring invoice, yes, we try our best to go with the automation. So example, recurring, you also have the MyInvoice control. Means you can actually select, validate, every month that thing will be automated lah. Okay, but let's say anything went wrong, it will automatically falls back to the normal invoice. So I think straightforward answer is that yes, it's also supported there lah. Last question, CN must match the sales UUID. How to do it? No, I think each document will have their own UUID. Okay, so invoice will have their UUID, and credit note will have a different UUID. So if you were to use the credit note to knock off the invoice, that will be two UUID lah. Okay, so there's no same UUID for that case lah. Why invoice don't have UUID? This one already answered. Is there a Bukku e-invoice tutorial? I think this is the so-called tutorial, right? So you let me know what kind of tutorial you actually are looking for. Debina also answered just now. Can Bukku pull purchase invoice information which is already validated? Yes, coming soon. Yeah, we have something better. It's coming soon, this month or next month. Yeah, stay tuned for that. For consolidation, do we have to do it manually at the beginning of every month? For all the invoice we put as normal, yes, you have to do it. Before, you have to remember doing it. System won't do it for you. I think it's quite dangerous for us to do it for you, although it's possible. But you see, we're trying our best to help you, which is you will get a reminder. Okay, you see, these are all the samples, right? So like keep telling you that you have one transaction yet to be submitted. As long as you have more than one transactions not submitted under normal. Of course, we are not talking about external. Under normal, it will be actually triggering a message that's reminding you to do it. Okay, so that's something you can expect. Is there a registration on the pre-pod environment for testing before the live submission? Yes, you can already submit. We also have, you can talk to our customer team. We have a demo account for you to actually try out everything. Let's say you're not ready, you're not confident that you can do everything. You can request for that account and then you can try try using it. Similar to what I'm doing here, but whatever I submit is not the real, is not a production server. For consolidated invoices, can we actually just combine, let's say one day, there are 5 sales, we can just create one invoice to represent all 5. I think, I don't know actually, you might have to clarify with LHDN, but I don't know whether that is acceptable for them. Okay, so I can't actually answer for on behalf of them, unfortunately. Can invoice be backdated more than 3 days? Not at the moment. We are following their requirements, so you can only submit invoice for the past 3 days, and also you cannot do a post-dated invoice, right? So there's something that you need to be aware. If we do a B2C or do a consolidated e-invoice, they have a company revenue limitation. So I think the limitations or the threshold is the same for all businesses in Malaysia, right? Certain businesses are exempted as long as your revenue is less than 150,000. So it doesn't matter whether you are doing consolidated or not. As soon as you went over 150,000 per year, you are supposed to comply, okay? Does every transaction needs to be validated by HDN? Walk-in customer, no need, but unless they request for it, otherwise you issue normal and later you do the consolidation before the 7th of the following month. Right? The very last thing that I did just now, you are supposed to do that for a retail. Is there any dummy account provided by Bukku? Yes, you can talk to our customer team. We have that for you to do testing on the pre-production environment. Can we still key in backdated invoice 3 days? You can key in backdate 3 days only. Yeah, so all these are a lot of people asking backdated. Those suppliers not yet need to implement e-invoice must do a self bill. You can do a self bill. Let's say they cannot provide you or they haven't started enforcing, you can do a self bill. No problem. For foreign company invoice, if no validation from the foreign company, so it cannot be, you have to do a self bill. If you're talking about buying something from a foreign entity, but if you are selling something to a foreign company, let's say you're selling, then you do not need to submit as a e-invoice, but it has to be consolidated, I believe. For the OTP verification, I realized that anyone can put in their email to get a OTP. Will it be secure as they can use it to edit e-invoice details? This is something that we are actively looking at. Is there a better way? So this is one of the way we can think of right now. But again, we are actively looking at trying to improve that. If you have any suggestions, feel free to actually let us know. How to update a team of suppliers for e-invoice purpose, same as the customer. You can do the same thing, right? Just now I was telling you, you want to request from customers, you can do exactly the same thing. Just take the supplier and then send them an email from the system. Yeah. Do we need to back up your data? IRB requires 7 years of record keeping. We do. You don't need to back up. We are helping you to back up as long as you actively subscribe to our system. Yeah. If you're an active subscriber, we can keep more than 7 years because we never delete your data. The reminders, DO and OS, is it automatically pops up to inform the user? I'm not sure what you mean by the DOs and the OS, but let's say you're talking about the notification. It's actually meant for anyone with access to the MyInvoice module. Then they will actually get the relevant notification lah. For purchase invoice, do we need to record manually or already link with MyInvoice? It's coming soon. We are trying to have some automation. Right now, you can make use of the digital shoebox. Can invoice backdate more than 3 days? This one already answered. Can we use our existing real Bukku data instead of testing? You cannot. If you are talking about the production, you see this is .fyi, this is a different server. If you are running on a Bukku.my, that production is connected to LHDN production server. So it's production to production. If you were to do a testing, you need to make sure LHDN doesn't come and actually disturb you lah. Or sometimes we see customer using it production for testing also, and even ourselves we do some testing. But just make sure if you want to do testing, put 1 ringgit or 2 ringgit lah, so it will have less impact to you. Yeah. Okay. If those not yet implemented and never do self-bill, will there be expenses be allowable? Means is it considered as expenses from a LHDN's perspective? This is a tricky question. All right. So I think right now is a what do you call that? The 6-month buffer period lah. Okay. So I think you should try your best to actually make that happen as much as possible lah. I don't think LHDN will come and look for you guys so soon. Self-bill can also do a normal at MyInvoice control. Yeah. So if you do normal, means that thing can be consolidated later. But let's say you are very sure the incoming purchase invoice, when they send you the PDF already has a validated there, then you put as external because it will never get validated again. Okay. If the effective date for e-invoice is 1st January next year, we already submitted and have validated e-invoice. Can we still issue backdated normal invoices dated year? You cannot backdate more than 3 days, right? So that's the short answer lah. How many servers can you share this system to use? How many servers can share this system to use? I'm not sure what do you mean by that. Can you elaborate? For self-built e-invoice, just put our own company as the customer, right? No, it's all done automatically, right? You select the supplier. You select the supplier, correct? Right? You record the purchase invoice just normally, and the system will handle which one is supposed to be the supplier, which one is supposed to be a customer. These are all done automatically. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it lah. Okay, so let's see if I think we can wait for another few minutes and see if we have more questions coming in. Okay, we'll just wait. Yeah. What is the 6-month buffer? Yeah, the government announced the grace period. I was talking about the grace period, sorry. The 6-month grace period. So right now you can issue consolidated for the first 6 months. Yeah. Yes, means let's say you're supposed to start phase 3 July next year. For the first 6 months until end of December, you can issue consolidated. Yeah. Okay, I think we are done with all the questions, and I think our session also is coming to an end. All right. So with that, I will actually conclude. We will actually conclude the session today. And thanks everyone, like more than 100 of you joining us today. I appreciate your time, and feel free to check out our YouTube for the recording. And we also have, this is actually the last training for e-invoice this year. Next year onwards, of course, stay tuned. We have other e-invoice training. All right. So you can actually expect more trainings coming up. Okay. So thank you very everyone joining us, and I appreciate your time, and I'll see you guys around. Bye bye.